This is lecture number 12 for AP Bio, and it deals with behavior. So behavior is odd, so this has to be a different type of video. Siblings. We're going to deal with how behavior turns out to be influenced by evolution, whatever evolution is, but we'll get there. So, a whole bunch of objectives, book reference, right. When we look at behavior, it turns out that there's a few categories. So, you have the type of behavior that you are born knowing how to do, you have the type of behavior that you are taught, and then we have this weird mixture of the two, which we call communication. So some of those born behaviors, so the innate ones, those are things that are genetically programmed, meaning it just comes with you. And among the most famous of those are what we call fixed action patterns. And so this organism here is a male stickleback, and what it will do is it will attack anything that resembles a male stickleback. Male sticklebacks, even though the picture doesn't show it, have red underbellies. So anything that is fish-like, they will attack. So obviously those four things there aren't male sticklebacks, but the male stickleback will still attack it because it looks like a male stickleback, and anything that resembles it will immediately trigger the response. You also get the same thing with goose, or with a goose. So with geese, they will also exhibit a fixed action pattern. See if you could find it. Did you see it? One more time. The goose is going to try and roll an egg into its underneath herself, whether the egg is there or not, or if the egg is a stone. That second one that seemed to take her a while, that was a rock. And still it was, oh, nope, egg, I have to collect it. It's what we call a fixed action pattern. We have some other things that turn out to just be natural behaviors that aren't influenced by anything else, they just happen. And one of those is what we call the circadian rhythm, or your biological clock. And that is, what you will notice is your temperature fluctuates throughout the day, but also when you wake up and fall asleep will fluctuate. So if you were put into a room where there are there are lights, but you have no idea what the time is, so there's no clocks, no television that reveals time, there's nothing that lets you know sun out, sun not out, what you will end up doing is you will end up establishing a day. And the day will either be like 22, 23 hours long, 24 hours long, 25 hours long. It depends on your age. But you will naturally start developing a day length. And that has something to do with how we're built, or our programming. You also get some other weird ones like migration. So migrations are things that don't need to get taught, they just happen. And birds that end up doing this migration, so going from North America to South America and South America back up to North America, some of the interesting things about those migrations is they actually don't need to be told when to go because they get cues from the environment, and they also don't need to be told, the actual path, like which way is north, which way is south, because they actually have a compass inside of their ears. They have little stones called otoliths, which just means ear stones. And what those will do is they allow the bird to know north from south because they're actually magnets. Another behavior would be things like reproduction. So the act of reproduction you don't need to get taught. But what to reproduce with has to be learned. So that there turns out to be mildly unique, and it's actually one of the labs we're supposed to do, which is fruit fly courtship. We're not going to do that, lab, because I can show it to you. So there's a whole bunch of parts. So they have to figure out, male and female need to figure out who they are. The male will sing. The male is going to chase the female. The male has to sit there and go tap, tap, tap and say, hey, are you okay with it? And then the deed does or does not happen. So let's watch it.
We got it together, didn't we? We've definitely got our thing together, don't we, baby? Isn't that nice? I mean, really, when you really sit and think about it, isn't it really, really nice? I can easily feel myself slipping more and more waves. That super world of my own. Nobody but you and me. We've got it together, baby.
Yeah. So that is in part learning and it's part innate. But other behaviors are totally learned. And it falls under what we call operant conditioning. See if you can spot it in this clip. That might make some of you very happy.
Just focus on your studies for a little while. You're still an excellent student, right?
Oh yeah. I need you to send me a calculus test.
What?
I'm failing.
Okay. You are... What do they call it? Grounded. You're grounded.
Did you notice how her behavior changed? At first it was like, oh, daddy, I'm not doing well in calculus, and trying to elicit a positive response because, you do the pouty thing and hopefully dad responds a certain way, and that's not what happened. That's a phenomenon referred to as operant conditioning, which is you get trained to do certain things. A lot of you actually exhibit operant conditioning. I know I exhibit it. And it's like you were taught, oh, bell rings, you start, bell rings, time to leave, you raise your hand when you ask a question, and that type of stuff. But another thing that is taught would be things like language. Language is not normal. Speaking, verbal communication, didn't mean to hit. Verbal communication is normal. That's something that humans do. It's why babies start babbling, because they're trying to communicate with you. The written English word is a different story, and that's why we have so many issues with reading, and it's because it's not normal. It's a learned behavior. All of these behaviors, whether they're learned or not learned, they turn out to have to mean something. And one of the things that we notice is you tend to help out your family a lot more. So it's like, you could pick on your brother or your sister or whoever. But if someone else does it, it's like, well, no. You don't get to pick on them. I get to pick on them. And what we notice is you get defensive when it's your own family. So there must be a reason for it. There must be some type of survival thing that mechanism exists. That'd be an evolution thing. And what we pick up on is a rule that's referred to as Hamilton's rule, which is basically you're going to be nice to your relatives and you're not as nice to your not relatives. The way that this shows up is, you might be willing to help out members of your own tribe or your own family or your own group because they're probably related to you, but another group, they're the enemy. This rule does not apply if you happen to be in a super social structure, meaning if you are with a bunch of wolves, this rule doesn't turn out to work. With humans, it turns out this thing doesn't work. And there's some interesting consequences of that.